Hello and welcome to today's video, and in today's video I'm going to break down to you how you can lose weight put in the most simple of terms. And the reason why I'm making this video for you is because chances are, if you're like most people or myself when I first started out, then you've heard 101 different things to do with weight loss, and at this point you just don't know who or what to listen to. You're super overwhelmed and you're almost feeling like giving up because, again, you just don't know what to believe anymore. And I understand it can feel very confusing and almost overwhelming. So worry not, because I'm going to break down 5 or 6 points that you will do well to be consistent with on your weight loss journey. And otherwise, I'm going to go through each point in no particular order. So keep watching and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because it does help immensely. Let's get stuck in. Although before getting into specifics, it is important to mention that consistency is going to be the most vital factor on your weight loss journey. And the reason why I mention this is because you could have the best plan in the world, but if you only follow it very sporadically or not at all, then it's not going to do much for you. Whereas on the other hand, you could have an average plan, but if you follow it extremely consistently, then you are going to get results from that. So if there was a hierarchy pyramid, consistency is always going to be at the top. So again, nothing is ever going to work without it. Do bear that in mind moving forward. Anyway, with that now out of the way, let's get into point number 1. Create a calorie deficit. Now, a calorie deficit is the only non-negotiable factor for weight loss. You must be in a calorie deficit for weight loss to happen. Some people say it's keto, some people say it's carnivore, some people say it's intermittent fasting. Truth be told, all of these approaches can work and more, because they all go back to the same thing, which is they have different ways of putting you into a calorie deficit. So I don't really care how you do it, just find a way that's sustainable, healthy, and that I was going to say you enjoy, but maybe you could say sucks the least, and stick to it, keep going with it, and that is what's going to help you get results as well. It is probably important to mention what a calorie deficit is. A calorie deficit is basically when you consume less calories than is required to maintain your body weight. And the ideal way of creating a calorie deficit is through your nutrition and not so much through your physical activity, because it's very, very tough to out-exercise what you eat and drink. So do bear that in mind as well. And remember, aggressiveness very rarely works long-term, so I would always recommend only having a slight calorie deficit. And now point number 2 is physical activity. And I know I just mentioned that you want to create a calorie deficit through your nutrition, and that's true. Of course, I still stand by that. Although the reason why I mentioned physical activity is not so much for weight loss specifically, but because it's good for you and it will only help with the weight loss process long term: walking and or resistance training. And now the reason why I mentioned these 2 points is because, number 1, and I'm going to start with walking. Walking is one of the most overlooked methods of exercise. So if you're not walking much, maybe you're doing less than 5,000 steps a day most days, then I would definitely start looking at where you could perhaps include 10 to 15-minute walks in your schedule. That's going to be a huge game changer for you. And number 2, if you could start doing 2 to 5 weekly resistance training sessions, that's also going to be a huge game changer as well, because not only are you going to feel better for it and look better too, which is always a nice bonus, but you're also going to get stronger, and that is one of the most overlooked factors as well. And if you can get stronger, that's only going to help so much with the weight loss process. And you're probably wondering how. Think of it like this. Let's say you get 15% stronger. Life gets 15% easier. That's because you become more independent. You are able to carry the heavy bag of groceries, or the heavy luggage at the airport. You don't have to keep relying on other people to do it for you. And because you're doing these little things now yourself, because you can and you have the strength, then you burn more calories throughout the day just through subconscious movement. You're increasing your levels of NEAT. So that does help a ton with the weight loss process, and it is definitely something for you to consider. And there's so much more I could say about it, but this video is how to lose weight put simply, so I don't want to overcomplicate it too much. I just quickly wanted to interrupt this video to let you know about my podcast, the Leo Albers podcast, on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts via the links that are in the caption of this video, so do go and check that out. And now point number 3 is focus on what you can add. So you're probably wondering what I mean by this. So instead of always saying, I'm going to stop eating carbs, I'm going to stop eating sugar, I'm going to stop eating processed foods, I'm going to stop eating this, I'm going to stop eating that, that is you going into your weight loss journey with like a restriction mindset, which doesn't help as much with sustainability over the long term. But I will tell you what does help with sustainability over the long term is always instead, forget about that. Don't even worry about what you should remove. Start thinking about what you would do well to include more of. So more vegetables, more fruits, more protein, more water, more whole foods. And when you start to approach your weight loss journey like that, it can become a huge game changer just for your mindset when going in, and therefore help with sustainability a lot more in the long term. And now point number 4 is protein and fiber. And I know I briefly touched upon protein in the previous point, but I do want to especially mention protein and fiber in this point number 4, because I've worked with many Calorie Online members around the world by now. And one thing I can confirm is that when brand new Calorie Online members come to me, they come to me quite typically under consuming protein and fiber. And of course, there's a lot of benefits to both protein and fiber. You know, when it comes to protein, it helps with recovery, muscle gain. But one thing that helps tremendously with the weight loss process is that these two things, protein and fiber, help so much more with you feeling fuller. So if you can get more protein and fiber in, then you are going to feel a lot fuller, which therefore is going to help you feel less focused on wanting to eat more food, consuming more calories, which is obviously therefore going to help with the weight loss process. So do start consuming more protein and fiber. Now, point number 5 is your hydration. And I know it's probably the least sexiest point that I've mentioned on this. Heck, it's probably even one of the least sexiest weight loss points that you could find on the internet, but it's true. Because one thing I can confidently tell you is that drinking more water is one of the most low barrier health habits, not even just weight loss habits, health habits that you can implement from right now, and most people just aren't. Most people are, potentially you included, are walking around chronically dehydrated to the point you don't even realize it anymore, because many people have just become so used to that feeling of chronic dehydration. So my advice to you is start prioritizing your water intake more, starting from once you've finished watching this video and after you finish subscribing to the channel. And before I move on to the next point, you certainly don't need to be listed with all of water's benefits, but it is also worth mentioning that you would do well to prioritize water intake over other liquid calories as well, which if you're drinking a lot of your calories from maybe alcoholic beverages or fruit juices or smoothies, then they're not really going to fill you up because they're liquids, but they are still going to contribute quite a bit to your calorie intake for the day. So that's just something to think about as well. That is pretty much it. It is important to mention before I finish that you do not have to implement every single point that I just mentioned throughout this video, as that could feel quite overwhelming. But my advice to you is to pick at least 2 or 3 of the points I mentioned and focus on those, because I guarantee that you just even picking 2 or 3 points that I mentioned throughout the video will make a huge difference to your weight loss journey. Otherwise, I do hope you found this video helpful. If you want a free fat loss guide, you can grab that via the link in the caption of this video, which will take you to my website, and you can grab it from there. If you want to check out my podcast, then please do. Again, those links are also in the caption of this video. Share this video, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. Take care, and I'll see you around.